formally now.
Putting faces with names.
Yep.
Get started in just a second. Okay, the time is 7:00 p.m. I call to order this monthly meeting for April 13th, 2021 of the Perry Township Board of Trustees. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Karen, if you would call roll, please. Karen, are you with us?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, sorry, my mic wasn't on.
Gotcha.
Trustee Wynn,
Here.
Trustee Hartshorn,
Here.
Trustee Mears.
You're muted,
Okay.
Missy.
Oh, Missy, you're still muted.
Yes, sorry.
Before we get into regular business, we have a guest this evening. We are going to welcome James Metz from the Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission to talk to us about the retreat project that potentially will take place in our township. So, James, if you'd like, go ahead.
Thank you, Mindy. Hi, everyone. My name is James Metz. I just started at Miami Valley Regional Planning Commission February 22nd as the disaster recovery planner. So I'm here today to talk about retreat, and retreat is a great opportunity for all the impacted jurisdictions within the May 2019 disaster area to have a tree replanted on their property. So this is something that we've been working with a company called Retreat. They're a nonprofit organization. They were recently absorbed by Keep America Beautiful. I'm sure some of you guys are kind of familiar with Keep America Beautiful. If not, their environmental organization, nonprofit, helps people clean up their environment. So we reached out, MVRPC reached out to Retreat, and we started this progress where they are going to come and help every single property, or potentially, hopefully help every single property. It all depends on funding, to get 1 or 2 trees planted on their property if they have experienced tree damage. Now, the tree damage they're looking at is not some limbs that are fallen, but dangerous dangerous trees that have fallen down, trees that have been completely removed, something significant of that level. So you also hear me refer to Grady. He is the executive director of Retreat, myself, Stacy, and then the Dayton Foundation. I don't know what you guys do know, what you don't know. So I'm sorry if I'm repeating anything that you do already know. And if I ever skip anything, please let me know. So the Dayton Foundation is partnering with MVRPC and Retreat to help create an account to help us fundraise to plant all the trees. All the volunteer work will be, all the tree planting will be from volunteers. The only costs will be for the trees and the community dinners when they happen. We are viewing the whole entire tornado impacted jurisdiction region to be completely planted by spring 2022, by the end of spring 2022. So this fall, September 25th, is our ideal first planting within Trotwood, Brookville, and Perry Township. And we're going to follow the path of the storm. So that's this coming fall. Next spring, we're looking at doing Old North State and Harrison Township, a little bit of Vandalia that was hit, Riverside, and then spring 2022 will be the Beaver Creek, Greene County areas. So the trees that we are looking to buy, Retreat is doing all of this. They're taking care of all of it. I'm assisting, but they're going to be the ones that are going to be putting on the application, putting on gathering the volunteers, gathering any necessities that we need. They'll be the one that will manage all the funds. They'll be the ones to buy the trees. So the trees we're looking are going to be 8 to 10 feet tall, 15 gallons in size, and at least an inch in diameter, if not up to 2 inches. So these are not going to be like little sprouts. These are going to be tall, significant trees that'll help bring back a sense of place within these communities. With that being said, whether it's September 26th, whether it's September 25th, whether it's a day or two after, as long as properties within Perry Township that have been affected by the tornado put an application in, and I'll tell you guys about that in a second, we're going to try to get a tree planted in their yard. So just a frame of reference, I live in Brookville. I'm not too far off of Preble County line and Upper Lewisburg, Salem. My trees took damage, right? But not significant enough for tree removal. I lost a bunch of limbs, no big deal, not really an issue. The people who've actually lost trees, who've had trees falling down, I'm sure you guys are more familiar with like the Wolf Creek area within the area that got hit. That's the trees that we're going to be, the properties that we'll be focusing on. As I mentioned, Retreat is kind of handling all aspects of this. So on April 30th, they're going to be launching the Miami Valley Tree Covery Campaign. I can provide links and I can provide any brochures and stuff afterwards for you guys to review. Get back to me if you have any questions. But when they launch it, there will be a brochure online. There will be a one-pager. There will be an application that we are hoping, or we are wanting all property owners who are wanting a tree to fill out. We have a system online, and we're been tracking people who've had severe damage to their house, severe damage to their trees and everything else. And we will reach out to them. I didn't see any Perry Township on that list. So it would be a very important thing for you to disseminate. Once the application goes live, that is something that I'll pass out to Mindy. She's been my point of contact, everybody. She's the one I've been talking to for Perry Township. I will pass that information off to her, let her know, and she will pass that off to you guys. With the tree planting, we are hoping to have volunteers from your local area, from your local jurisdiction. I've talked to Sonia Keaton from Brookville. I know that they've looked at high school sports teams. They've looked at passing out volunteer applications. When it comes to a volunteer, anybody can come volunteer. If you are 18 years or younger, you're considered a child and would need to be accompanied by a legal guardian. Sometimes having Boy Scouts or Cub Scouts is not as ideal as it possibly could be, because they're not going to be able to physically help, and they're going to you're going to have somebody watch them, while you're out there. So it's better to have high school age and older if they're going to participate. Not trying to take away anybody's credibility, but this is, some stuff that Grady has mentioned to me during our phone calls. So volunteer applications will be online too. All that I'll be able to pass off to you. When it comes to fundraising, Grady right now is finalizing his one-pager for fundraising applications, which we'll send out to every single business, from small little business all the way up to some of our larger companies. I've already created a list for all of our larger companies that we'll do a reach out for through Retreat. Reaching out to large companies, we'll have that under control. When it comes to reaching out to smaller businesses or medium-sized businesses, or any type of angel investor, people who might want to donate, posting it on every single door, posting it grocery stores. I know some people have the Nextdoor app, putting it there, just kind of letting them know what's going on. I think that kind of covers fundraising, volunteers. So when it comes to fundraising, the Dane Foundation will be holding all the funds. Retreat will be the one that will be maintaining the funds. When it comes to purchasing anything, they'll only purchase trees, and then they're going to have a community dinner as well. And each major large planting will have a community dinner. Your community dinner will be the weekend of September 25th. We're not very sure on what day because we're very uncertain on the volume of applications that we may get. I know there's by the high school in Brookville, the whole entire area, there's no trees. It's completely wiped out. We may get every single person asking for a tree, or we may not get anybody asking for a tree. So we don't want to solidify exact dates until we have a better idea. The online application, as I mentioned before, comes on April 30th, which is Arbor Day. And we're planning on closing that application process at the end of all the tree plantings. So spring 2022 will be when the application closes. Now, if there's one or two houses that happen to be in Perry Township that wanted a tree, but they didn't put an application in until next spring, we'll try to work them in at some point in time. You know, 1 or 2 trees is not a lot, but you start looking at 60 to 100 trees, that becomes much more significant, and we'd have to divert volunteers back over. I think that covers everything for the trees. Is there anybody that has any questions?
What's the cost of the trees?
I'm sorry, could you say that one more time?
What's the cost of the trees?
It's free.
They're free. Okay.
So the trees, and that's why we're doing this fundraising, is because we don't want people to have to pay for any of the trees that they want in their yard.
Okay.
So every single tree ideally will be free. I mean, they are going to be free. We're not going to charge anybody anything for a tree. The issue we're hoping is that, you know, we may have to keep fundraising for years to get everybody a tree. That, you know, and another key point that I just thought of is that retreat saying is the right tree, the right time, the right place. So you have a tree that's destroyed on your property and it needs to be replanted, and maybe it's a California pine. They're not going to come back and plant a California pine back into your property. They're going to plant something that is native, something that is from this region, something that will survive and thrive in this region. When they do plant a tree in your yard, they will also have an arborist that will identify which spot is the best place to plant your tree, depending on proximity to your house. Is this a large growing silver maple who, you know, in 10 years might drop some limbs on your house? Or is this something a little bit different, a little slower growing, a little bit harder wood? So there is that. There is also something that we're doing still, and it's, when I say we, it's not in the RPC, it's Retreat is working with the Dayton Foundation, who's also attempting to create a partnership with Ohio ISA. They are the boricologists. It's a hard word to say. Took me a little while to learn it, but they are the boricologists who will hopefully create some type of fundraising for us to also, and say us, I mean them, for them to come through and help cut down any trees that are still very dangerous. They're on private property, and the property owner cannot afford removal. So we are looking at trees that are slightly hanging over somebody's house. We're looking at trees that are, you know, they're split in half. You know, they're going to fall on something or somebody at some point in time, and we want those removed. So Retreat in Ohio is trying to partner with Ohio State to have that happen. We'll know more about that in a week or two. So I think that kind of covers fundraising, volunteers, types of trees, timeline, cost.
James, will our citizens, if they want to receive a tree, will they need to participate in the fundraising?
No. I mean, ideally that would be nice, right? So it's not just me. So it's not me trying to raise $500,000 by myself. But they're looking between $300,000 to $500,000 for the whole entire region. For for tree planting. I believe Perry Township, you guys had 48 houses that were affected through the tornado that we have. And I understand that that's 48 houses that have been directly damaged by the tornado, but then also the span of how far out that the tornado went, that we are going to accept, like, if they're half a mile north of the path of the tornado and they've suffered significant damage, then those houses will get on there and get a tree planted as well. So something not as far up north as me. I'm just slightly north of 70, but anybody that had any type of hurricane or tornado damage.
So I think if anybody has any questions, your residents can feel free to contact us and we can forward questions on to you to get back on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I can also, you can also pass out my email and phone number for anybody who's interested. Anybody who has any follow-up questions, I'd like to speak to anybody who has any questions and help us get these trees planted.
Yeah, we'll be sure to add the links, the materials you provide, and your contact information to our social media as well as our website.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Jason.
Not a problem.
And Mindy and Missy and whoever else is on the call.
A lot of people tonight. So thank you, James. I appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, so that gives us a future option to discuss as well. At this time, we have a consent agenda resolution for resolutions 21, 43, 44, 45, and 46 to approve the minutes from February, March, and the special meeting March 18th, as well as payment of bills. Would either of you like to make a motion to accept that?
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda for resolutions 2021, 43 through 46.
Second.
Trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Wynn.
Yes. We didn't get emailed a fiscal officer report. So, I mean, we've only got the information that's on the agenda.
Mhm.
We have some supplemental appropriations. Resolution 2147 needs to be approved to increase the shop with a cop expenses, decrease the funding in the Sheep Road project. And do either of you know, is that what it says, the $8,232.79 in kind? Is that in kind from our road account versus, I have no idea.
Randy can answer that. Usually that's labor, hauling, stuff that we do labor wise to offset the cost, I believe.
That is correct. That's the in-kind time, is the work that we put in as part of the road project. That's the cost received back, as far as I'm aware. So that would be taken off of what we would originally have expended on that project.
Okay, and then the increase for the police department, OTARMA insurance, we agreed on that. And for the general fund for the motor module for our furnace to keep working in the township building. So all of those are lumped together in one resolution. I'll make a motion that we accept all of them as written.
Second.
Trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Wynn,
Yes.
trustee Mears. Trustee Mears,
Yes, I'm sorry.
Did you, yes, you're voting yes, Missy?
Yes, yes.
All right, so that is passed. Road and Cemetery, Randy, do you have a report for us this evening?
I do. I'm going to start with, I'm going to break it down into a couple different pieces here. Just touch a little bit on equipment. The 91 dump truck is on Gov Deals. It'll be on until April 22nd. It's currently about 11.25 bid on that truck, I think. So we've still got some time to go. The road mowers serviced and ready to go for the road mowing season is soon to come up. Dump trucks, we've been working, switching them over to summer mode, getting them set up, plows put away, the spreader tailgates off and ready for that. We'll need to service one of those yet. Our pickup truck, as I've mentioned to you, is in the shop for repairs. That should be probably another, he gave us originally about 2 weeks on that. So we'll have that back soon. There's been no movement on the 1-ton truck replacement. I was actually talking to the guy at the county about those truck availability, and he said right now they're not available anyway. So we're still following up on the 1-ton truck replacement or other options to do that. Some of the other miscellaneous stuff, our salt bin is full thanks to Montgomery County, helped us out with that. It's full for next season. Looking at the OTARMA report that was sent out, we just kind of wanted to go through and do all of the listings that are on that OTARMA report. We are down to, in our area, some posts they required in front of fuel tanks. And those posts have been ordered. We pick them up tomorrow or the next day, depends on when we get down there, to put those posts in. All the other items on our list have been completed in our area. There's still, as far as roads go, we got a little call for a little standing water on a road up on Keener, and we're still getting a couple calls from residents on some grass seed that we'll be touching up in some areas that never got the, they were wanting some other soil down on top and some grass seed that never got done on some of those, just from the areas that we'd done before. Then I'm gonna move on to a little bit in the cemeteries. We've been cleaning up some trees down in Piermont Cemetery, cleaning up that fence row. Some of those trees have been having a lot of limbs fall down in that cemetery, trying to alleviate that problem. There's a little bit of that fence that's broken down. I want to take out as well. So that cemetery is actually looking very nice up there. We did put up signs in all 3 cemeteries for, we will get back to what the original cemetery rules are, picking up some decorations, removal of flowers and decorations in the cemeteries on a scheduled basis, March 1st and October 1st, which basically matches up with every other cemetery around. That's kind of what most people do. So we want to get back to doing that. We also had a little, we put in a schedule for trash pickup in the cemetery because of that. The cans have been over full at times. We secured some more cans and changed those out on a regular rotation on Thursday. That was once again thanks to New Lebanon, supplied us with some extra trash can barrels up there for that. So that seems to be working out pretty good. We did have 4 grave sales in Piermont Cemetery this month. We also have had 10 funerals this year. So it's going, we're looking at about probably a 30, which has been about a 25 or 26 average. Last year was a lot higher at about 46, 47 funerals. So I don't know what the rest of the year will give us, but so far we're at about 10 this year for the first quarter. Right now the headstone foundation pours is in progress. We actually we've got a lot of those dug, framed. We're doing it in 2 separate pours because there's 17 of them. So we'll be pouring 8 of those tomorrow. It's about 6 yards of concrete. And so we start about 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll be doing those 17, like I say, 17 foundations total, about 10 total yards of concrete on those. So that's taking up a little bit of our time right now. Hope to complete those by mid next week, all of them. Along the lines of manpower, I would like to ask the trustees about adding Dave Steffi, my temporary part-time guy right now, to full-time, starting June 1st. Dave's, he said he would like to come on and work at least a couple years till we get all situated and everybody hired is like we back to full-time. So David mentioned that, and I'd like to bring him on. It's nothing that has to be decided tonight, but like I say, we really didn't want it to start till March 1st due to some other commitments that Dave has up to this point. I'm just afraid if we leave him on part-time, we're gonna run out of temporary hours for him. He's been pulling a lot of hours and really helping out. So I'd like to give Dave the first shot at that for the near future. I'd also like to ask the trustees to add Dale Mears back to the payroll as a part-time as needed employee. Do some road mowing, some light stuff that he's able to do. Maybe some mowing around the township buildings and cemeteries as well as needed, like I say. And to touch base on an earlier question on the insurance and licensing, we did submit that paperwork on our insurance and license. Dave and I did. So that should be in a file down there. So on those, that's really where I'm at from my first report. If there was any questions on any one of those, I'll take them now.
We do have someone with their hand raised.
Okay.
This is Tyler Lee. I was just wondering about the erosion issues going on in the cemetery. If those were going to be taken care of.
Which erosion issues are there?
Up there in Fairmont Cemetery, there's some erosion going on. I believe.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask for exact location specific. I know there's some in the older, very old part of the cemetery in the back where there's a hole that is a suck hole to sink down in on one. We're getting up there as time allows as we get these foundation orders in.
Right.
That's the only one I'm aware of right now.
In
But
the
if you have
southwest
others,
corner.
I'm sorry.
They're back in the southwest corner.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm aware of at least one. There's some others. Those older found their vaults. As time goes on, they get some sinkholes in them. I've just noticed those as we was cutting some trees back there myself. So that's something that we'll be looking into and filling in and seeding as we get there.
Well, at this time, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and hire Dave Steffi. Mr. Robbins, did you say June 1st?
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to go ahead and make that motion for that we hire Dave Steffi as full-time employee starting June 1st.
Do we have a rate at his current rate?
We didn't discuss that. I thought I would leave that. I think the higher end pay was the same whether it was temporary or full time. Right now, it's at his current rate.
Okay.
I'll second.
Trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn.
Yes. And I'll make a motion to bring in Dale Mears as a part-time as necessary worker. Randy, did you have a rate for that one?
Same as Dave.
Okay, at the same rate as Mr. Steffi.
Yes, sir.
I'll second.
I'm sorry, who second?
Randy did.
Trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Mears.
Abstain.
Thank you.
We do have another hand raised. Mr. Lee?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure with the Mears being the last name, is this a conflict of interest for the township?
Dale has been an employee at the township for a lot of years and two different occasions. that I'm aware of. So he just resigned recently. So he's been on the books before twice. Not to my knowledge, it is not a conflict of interest.
So just because that's the way it's always been done, it's not a conflict of interest?
It is acceptable, according to the Ohio Township Association handbook. It is acceptable for spouses to both serve in duties as long as they're not both elected officials and they're not in an immediate supervisory capacity. In this case, Mr. Mears' supervisor would be Randy Robbins, not immediately the trustees. So there is that separation and it is okay.
Great loophole. Thank you.
As well as trustee Mears abstained from the vote to absolve any conflict of interest.
Mr. Lee, if you have an issue with it, I can check with the attorney. We don't have to hire Mr. Mears back if you have an issue with that.
I would also like to add, that was strictly my decision based upon the time that Dale spent with the township before and his knowledge of the township and the cemeteries. That's the individual we need at this time. So that was strictly my decision and I'll stand by that.
Mr. Lee, would you like to address that or?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if there is a concern, we are happy to address those concerns. And if somebody is uncomfortable with Dale coming back to work in the township, don't hesitate to speak up and tell us, because we're here to avoid as many of these concerns as possible. Now, under road and cemetery, we have resolution 2148, renewing the permissive CD for 6 months at an interest rate of 10%.
No, it's 0.1%, I believe, Mindy.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. Do we have a motion?
That is something that we've had in the budget there. It's been carried over, but it has to be renewed each year or 6 months. We talked about it before, and I'd like to renew that for 6 months for that money in there. I think we talked about it before, but I think it was determined that it needed a resolution to continue with that.
Yeah, we had discussed, I guess, Rhonda had suggested if we waited, the interest was going to grow. Is that correct?
Well, what very little interest there is on that, an interest rate of 0.1%. But yeah, I think it was recommended that we leave it in there. That's kind of what we all discussed, but it was for a 6 month period. You can do it for 6 months or a year. I elected to do it for a 6 month period rather than tie. The difference was 0.05% difference between 6 months and a year. So I recommended we leave that in there for a 6 month period. I think it was on here tonight because rather than just redoing that, it needed a resolution to do so.
Right. And the 6 month period was to allow for the full assessment of the road and maintenance garage assets, to be able to plan any purchases and prioritize those. So the 6 months basically bought us that if we needed to look at using the permissive funds after 6 months.
That is correct.
So I will make a motion to renew the permissive CD for 6 months at an interest rate of 0.10%.
Second.
Trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Wen.
Yes. Okay, Chief Littleton, for a police department report.
Yes, ma'am. I need to ask the board for a resolution to accept the resignation of Anor Hamadi with an effective date of March 23rd, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn.
Yes.
I'd like to ask the board to pass a resolution to accept a new hire, Anthony Wynn, as a part-time police officer at the rate of $12.50 per hour while in field training, with an effective date starting tomorrow, Wednesday, April the 14th.
I'll make
Make
a
that
motion.
motion.
Oh,
Jason.
go ahead. Go ahead.
You got it. Go ahead.
I make a motion to accept Anthony Wynn as a new hire for the police department as of Wednesday, April 14th, 2021.
I will second.
Trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Mears.
Yes.
Our March stats are posted to our website. Also on our website, people may have seen something up there about us partnering with the Care House for Child Abuse Prevention Month for the entire month of April. Information is on there pertaining to child abuse prevention and the things to look out for, and kind of the history of the pinwheel that they have chosen. You'll also find on our website that we're holding a coloring contest with this pinwheel. That contest runs until April 23rd, where the top 3 pinwheels will be selected, and the individuals that color the pinwheels will receive some challenge coins, some patches, and some other stuff that we have here at the township. Our fishing derby is quickly approaching. It'll be here in August. Still trying to narrow down a final date for that, but just keep that in mind and make a mental note that August will be our fishing derby. Reviewing some of the budgets and a way to save some cost to the township. Done some research with the possibility of moving our dispatching from Montgomery County Regional Dispatch Center to the Inglewood Dispatch. And doing this switch, it would save the township approximately $20,000 a year in dispatch fees. Right now, I budget approximately $40,000 a year. I think dispatching comes out to around $38,000. Talking with Inglewood Dispatch, this would drop our dispatching fees down to around $20,000 to $22,000 a year. So there's still some research that needs to be done with that, but that would be something that I would like to discuss further once all the information that I've obtained and bring it back before the board. Also, the men's bathroom, the toilet was replaced back in March. While the company was here, they noticed some additional problems dealing specifically with our water filter in the mechanical room, and along with the well pressure tank. The tank's not holding air, and it's causing the pump to short cycle, and the filter is clogged. The pipes are rusted, so they weren't able to try to unclog that or anything due to the fact that the pipes being so rusted that they were afraid that they would break if they attempted to remove this filter. They recommended that both of these items to be replaced and brought up with modern times with where we're at. And I have a quote here. The filter in the housing unit, $382, and a well pressure tank with a new 4060 switch, $969. If that's something that the board would like to take under consideration, or if we need to put it out for additional bids. But those are 2 things that were brought to my attention while they were here replacing the men's bathroom toilet to be repaired.
I would like to get 2 more bids. As a rule of thumb, we should always get 3 bids on everything just for comparison prices, if nothing else.
Okay.
So Chief, is that it? Do you have anything else for us?
Do you want me to take care of these bids, or do you want Karen to call some people in, or even Randy?
I'll let the 3 of you guys decide. I can assume this is going to come out of the general budget because it's building maintenance. So
I would say we probably have Randy take lead on this, and Karen support as necessary is probably the best move here.
I can do that. That way we all will kind of try to come up with one general contractor that we can all use in those situations. So it maintains continuity. So I'll get with you, Chief, and touch base on exactly what we need.
Okay.
do we have any plumbers that we've used in the past? Have we had issues like this before?
The only one that I think the issue that we had once before was we'd used Craft MD. So I mean, that's the only one I've used before. We can talk about if that's still going to be an option, if it's going to be, or if we want to do other things. So I mean, that's strictly, we'll talk about that, and we can come up with one that everybody agrees on.
And I think we use Becco or whatever to put the softener in, so.
Okay. I'm not sure if they do full maintenance or full
Yeah,
plumbing services or not, so.
I don't think so, yeah.
Okay.
And that's all that I have.
Karen, you have a zoning report for us?
Okay, on the trash, the second quarter trash bills were mailed out March 30th, 2021. And I have put in a request to Rumpke to send out the new cycle schedules, the new recycle schedules, and I have not heard anything back from them yet. On zoning, I've emailed or mailed 11 permit applications since our last meeting, 8 barn, 1 shed, 1 home addition, 1 in-ground pool. And I have issued 3 permits since the last meeting, 2 pole barns and a shed. And I have sent out 6 courtesy letters to properties that I have received complaints on over the last 2 months. I've sent out 2 violation letters since the last meeting, and there is a BZA meeting scheduled for Thursday, April 22nd, 2021 via Zoom at 7. And that's all I have.
All right, so moving into the trustees' reports. In my report, I was very honored to help and spend some time with the police department and their Easter egg giveaway. It was unfortunate that Sycamore Park kind of pulled the strings on that a little bit, but it turned out really well. And I think all things considered, there were a lot of people that were really happy with it, and it was a lot of fun. I attended several day seminars through the OTA, and I've been trying to work on a training program a little bit for township folks as they come in. And I've attended several meetings with some other township leaders and some other officials to get some guidance on how things are done and how they face different situations. And I've been speaking with the OTA about anything that I wasn't really sure on how to handle. And we've had an open line of communication the past couple weeks, so I've spent a lot of time on the phone with them. Other than that, it's just been the normal routine of helping out in the office and hanging out at the building. Trustee Hartshorn.
Okay, thank you. The ramp project is considered complete. The county is waiting on 2 invoices, one from Kramer and Associates and one from Double J to pay out the remainder of the work that was executed through March 31st of this year. So if anybody stops by the township and sees those ramps, you did a pretty good job. I think people will be happy with it. The township website, social media, and general IT. I've continued updating the website, loading documents and minutes, scanning them in and getting them on the website. I'm just about closed out with the minutes from last year. It took a little while for those to be available, so those are being scanned in and will be uploaded by the end of the week. I've been investigating the cost of some information technology improvements for the township. I discussed these during the last working session. Some of them, there's a couple new ones. Zoom licensing for the township. Currently, the township doesn't have any Zoom licensing. And we had discussed the fact that being able to record meetings and broadcast them regardless of COVID limitations is something that the township needs to look into doing. Previously, we were using the security cameras, which weren't meant for that. It was very hard to burn those to DVD. It was very hard to stitch those together because it often cut the meeting in chunks, the recording in chunks. So I got with the Zoom government team and got a cost per license, which we only need 1 license, to be able to run meetings, both for anything the township needs, BZA or general meetings, at a cost of $149 per year. So if we wanted more licenses than that, I wouldn't recommend it, but that would be factors of $149 a year. I've been investigating uninterruptible power supplies for the office PCs. Currently, I was looking at 3 devices. 3 devices, each with a 4-year warranty, came to a cost of approximately $203.94. So there'll be more on that to come. Basically, if the power is lost to the building or to the PC, these devices give you time to be able to shut down gracefully without losing data. And they can now shut down your PC for you if you configure them that way. So it'll do a graceful shutdown of your PC if necessary. Just in case anything happens in the middle of the night and people aren't around, power goes out, we don't end up losing valuable data off our PCs. The meeting room camera and microphones, I haven't gotten to these yet. I still owe Sergeant Hessler a discussion on talking with who they've had do the IT work inside the building so far, because that's where I wanted to start. They're familiar with the building and what it would take to get a lot of this done. 2 new requirements that I'm looking into. One of them is Spectrum connectivity for the maintenance garage. Luckily, Spectrum is available in that area. We don't have to pay for another extension. And the cost was pretty fair. I'm waiting on the email back from the representative I've been working with on that cost. I'll present that at a later meeting. The other thing is looking into possibly 2 PCs for the maintenance garage, each with a printer. One would be in the general work area and one would be in the rear office area. Just trying to bring the office or the maintenance garage infrastructure up so that they can communicate with who they need to communicate with in a more reliable fashion. They'll have Wi-Fi for their devices that they use, and they will have township devices that they'll be able to use for email, communicating, and generating documentation, as well as other file needs. I was recently named a member of the Ohio Public Working Commission for District 4. That happened last month. I attended my first meeting on March 10th, 2021. I've been reviewing the documentation they've provided me with, taking in a lot of information. because they didn't really slow down to explain stuff. They just kind of got into their stride and was working through that. So there'll be more information on that at our next Board of Trustees meeting. The next Public Work Commission meeting is scheduled for April 14th, 2021. And I've continued my weekly driving inspections of roads and cemeteries through the township. So if you see me out there on Saturdays or Sundays, don't be afraid to say hi. I'd love to hear from the residents. And that is all that I have.
Okay. So before I start my report, I don't know if anybody was on for our work session, but I just wanted to make a statement. It's very unfortunate that Miss Binkin felt the need to resign tonight, effectively, immediately. I wish Miss Binkin all the luck and Godspeed to her. And now for my report. I had a meeting with Mr. Breidenball with Montgomery County Water and Soil. On 2 different occasions, I stuffed eggs. I've had several meetings with Mr. Robbins. I also bought a new refrigerator and donated it to the township building since the refrigerator went out. This may have to deal with the KLA assessment. I had a meeting with Miss Keaton from Brookville, and at this time, language will not be changed in our fire contract that we have already signed. They don't have a problem with the language, but since we've already signed the contract. And last, finally got the chance to have 2 gentlemen who were recommended by from Snyder Brick and Block to look at the archway at Pleasant Hill Cemetery. Then had a meeting with Mr. Robbins, and we discussed what these gentlemen had told me. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Mr. Robbins and let him fill you in on that.
Thank you, Trustee Mears.
You're welcome.
As part of the update to the Pleasant Hill Cemetery, we were looking at a lot of things up there. It started in the past with removal of dead trees. And we've still got some stumps to remove up there and some roads to fix. But as part of all that, as we're looking into the arch, the crumbling of the arch as it is, with huge holes in the side of it, and a lot of the fascia of that arch falling off and falling down. I think it's been repaired in the past. My recommendation is that the arch, we look at doing something different with the arch. Basically removing the arch, possibly bringing it down to a ground level. Other things that we can get some input from people and see what they'd like to think. But right now the arch is structurally deficient, and I believe past its usefulness. I realize it's part of a historical piece, but I think we can do something else with pieces of that arch to commemorate that and beautify that cemetery as well and be safe. Right now it's just a safety factor. On that arch. You can literally stick your hand through the holes in that. I don't think it's a covering and painting that it needs. I think it needs to be, it's time to look at other options with that arch. Like I say, you could we could look at saving pieces of it for a new entryway to the cemetery. But right now, I believe that one, in my estimation, it is structurally deficient and a hazard right now to bypassing traffic and to anybody coming in that cemetery. That cemetery, Pleasant Hill Cemetery, is our #1 cemetery with probably 80 to 85% of all township funerals in that cemetery. It gets a lot of traffic. As we were up there talking about, it's a lot of traffic coming in. As part of I want to consider it all part of a updating and a beautification of that cemetery. Right now with the rickety old fence there and that arch, it just doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to the eye for a township's #1 cemetery. I think we can do better. As part of that arch removal as well, I would like to look at removing the fence as well. The fence is held together with T-posts, baling wire, old J-hooks, and all kinds of stuff. If anybody drives past that cemetery, you can certainly see that fence is beyond repair. The Ohio Revised Code states that if a cemetery has a fence around it, it must be maintained. I don't think we could call that one maintained or maintainable at this point. So I think what I'd like to do is redo the whole entry to that cemetery, starting with the arch and the fences and some of the other trees along the roadway, to beautify that cemetery and update it so that it reflects better on the township.
It's not much, but we do have that $1,000 grant that we got for the arch. Well, it was for the cemetery, but we identified the arch as needing to be possibly patched until we got some subject matter experts to look at it and see that it's not structurally stable and it's a risk. So I think we have to use that before the end of June. And I will double back and check on that and see when we have to use that by. But if those funds can be used for that grant, we just have to keep track of how we're spending that money and report it back to the state afterwards.
Yeah, I would be really interested to hear some other comments from that. I know there's some people that, love the historical value of the arch, and I get it, in the fence, but from a safety standpoint, I wouldn't want anyone to get hurt. I don't believe our insurance policy will cover much of that, just the same as a tree falling on you in the cemetery. It's very little. So I just think there needs to be just some discussion on that arch as far as what options are available there.
Right. Mr. Lee, you have a question?
I don't so much have a question as the cemeteries house or hold a lot of people who made this township. I believe we should do everything we can to maintain them. So maybe instead of increasing the shop with a cop budget, we fix the cemeteries that we have.
Tonight,
Well,
the 1st time that any of us heard about the shop with a cop budget. This was not something that even Chief Littleton knew about, but it has apparently already been done in our financial books. There is additional funding being looked at for the cemeteries, and we recently learned that over the past few years, we have unfortunately been in violation of several Ohio revised codes as far as upkeep and maintenance on the cemeteries. So that is something that we're looking into now, we're catching up on, and Randy has been very instrumental in finding things such as the erosions on certain locations. If there is something that the citizens are seeing, please let us know so that we can go in and fix it, but there is some money set aside for that upkeep that has not been utilized in the past.
Yeah, I would also just like to remind that all we're really trying to do is just beautify the cemetery. We're not trying to tear everything down. There's a lot of stuff up there that's going to need fixed. There was a lot of money spent taking trees down. There's still more trees to take down in the cemeteries. The roadways in there, we're going to have to look a little bit further out to improve the roadways through the cemeteries, make them easier to plow, easier to get around, and also just better looking cemeteries. And like I say, I was just kind of wrapping all this up into one just big, what I call beautification and modernization project. Not pulling any triggers right now. Just I want to get some input and look at everything that we can do there and try to come up with the best solution.
Also, I'll add that we can't just use money from any fund in another effort. So the cemeteries have their own funds that are used explicitly for their care and maintenance, which is derived from the sale of the plots and the care of the plots. So the police fund, there's no crossing that over to do something with the cemetery or anything else, just so residents know.
I would also like to make note too that I was looking at the fee schedule for the cemeteries as a lot purchase, the opening and closing of the graves, and other associated cemetery fees. I was looking at them as comparison to others around us, and we are very low on that. We may be looking at adjustment of the fee schedule to bring more money into the cemetery, in steps possibly, so that we don't have to do anything drastic or move money from, obviously from someplace we're not allowed to, but just to generate funds for that cemetery, especially for the people who use that cemetery. And instead of trying to do something with a tax or anything of that nature. We just want the cemetery to be self-supportive. And I think we got to look at the fee schedule on that as well so that we can generate those funds.
All right, someone identified as the Lees. You have a question?
Okay.
Yeah, this is David Lee. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. The question I have has to do with cemeteries also. Just here recently, you guys accepted some bids for maintenance on mowing and stuff on the those places, the cemeteries. Question I do have is, what was the reasoning for taking the higher bid versus the lower bid? And didn't your attorney advise you to have all the paperwork done correctly on these bids before accepting them? That's my question.
The attorney did review everything, and it was all done legally, and everything was approved by the attorney before any contracts were accepted. I was not involved in the initial decision, so I can only comment on the rediscussions, but the bid was accepted based on the availability of the days that the perspectives were going to be coming out. One of them was not available each day of the week, was only available on certain days, and there were certain weather constraints. There was also concerns of utilizing fertilizers versus the others. So it wasn't just about the money. It also was regarding the upkeep, the benefit and longevity of the cemetery care, as well as the finance.
All right. Mr. Lee, you had a question?
Are you talking to me or Dad?
Well, you both have your hand up, so I don't know which one.
Well, I'm sure we have plenty of questions. As far as what you were just talking about, the stipulations where the paper had to be filled out the right way. And from the bid you took, it wasn't filled out the right way. So what's the issue with that?
It was filled out according to the instructions. It was not filled out according to individually named cemeteries, but it was broken down into 4 as described in the posting. It didn't name each of the 4 specifically, but it did break it down into 4. So given the legal jargon of it, it was broken down appropriately.
Another loophole. Thank you.
All right. We're clear to move on. So I believe we're up to new business now, Mindy.
Yeah, sorry. I forgot I was muted. Moving on to new business, we were presented this evening in our work session with a letter of resignation from our fiscal officer, Rhonda Bankin. Not happy about this and very sad to see it have come to this. But at this time, I'll entertain a motion to accept her resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Trustee Mears,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Wen.
Yes. Okay, I think other new business we pretty much covered in our reports. Did either of you have anything else to address that is potentially new?
No.
Not at this time.
Okay. Is there any old business that we need to revisit?
Hey, Jason.
Yes, Chief.
The maintenance building is already equipped with Spectrum Internet. We have it ran out there to be able to operate cameras and security systems and things that are in place out there for the property room. So it's already ran out there.
So we could split that off like we did up at the Township building, just add a separate subnet
Yes, sir.
up there. Okay. And I don't expect you to have it in your back pocket, but if you have the price that you guys are paying for that, we can look at offsetting some of that with the road and cemetery funds for their usage.
I want to say it's around $45 or $50 a month. Well, there is no phone service or anything like that out there.
Right.
I think that stayed with Frontier, but if that needed to be switched over or just wanted to switch it over so everything's in one general location, then that shouldn't be an issue either.
Okay. Well, then I'll look into getting another Wi-Fi router, and we'll look into setting that up. I'll work with Sergeant Hessler then once we work through and get approval for the purchase and get that set up.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Jason, there's a hand raised.
Yeah. Mr. Lee?
Well, this time I can't say anything further. As Rhonda started, I would like to ask the 3 trustees for their immediate resignation as well.
On what grounds?
Now, when it comes to the terms of Mike Kraft, you can't give him any cited actual reasons for dismissal. If anyone else would like to speak up on the subject, I invite them to do so now.
As you have already been told, Mr. Kraft was given
He
the
was
reason,
not.
and if he chooses to disclose that, that's up to him, but we are not going
He was
to
not.
say any more than has already been said.
He was not given any reason. No specific reason. You just listed a few headlines. Nothing on his report. From 1985 until now, nothing. So go for it.
There was an executive session held. Mr. Kraft had meetings with us multiple times. Specifics were discussed with him, and he is very aware of what those specifics are. We are not going to comment any further on those specifics. They were discussed with him in executive session, and if he chooses to disclose that, that's up to him. But he has the reasons and he knows them.
You're willing to go on record to say that you gave him reasons.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other visitors that would like to comment this evening?
Hello,
Yes.
can you hear me?
Yes.
This is Bonnie Bertelson. I just want to compliment the Township trustees. You have a hard job, and I think you're doing a fine job. And I just wanted to say that, give you a little positive feedback.
Thank you. Any other visitors that have comments?
Hello? Can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes,
Jason, are you recording this?
Yes.
Can you see the chats?
Yes.
Do you see what I'm talking about?
I haven't been able to pull up the chat yet.
Chief Littleton, are you still on?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Jason, I request that once you get a copy of the chats, that you please show to Chief Littleton what Robert Lee just sent me. Thank you.
Feel free to take screen captures of it because it may have been a private message. It didn't come over the general chat. Miss Wells?
Hi,
I'll do that.
sorry, my name's Jessica Wells, and I just wanted to take a minute to thank you for the Easter egg giveaway. It wasn't quite as much fun as hunting eggs out at Sycamore Park, but my children really did enjoy the opportunity to cruise by Perry Township Police Department and see some smiling faces. So thank you very much.
thank you for that. It was a lot of fun, and we were glad that we got to at least hand out the eggs that we did. And I think Chief Littleton did a great job pulling that together, and he and his team worked really hard.
Hopefully next year we're COVID free and we're back out at the state park and get back at this.
Mr. Lee, did you have another comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to light for Bonnie that I told her after through a chat that she could fornicate with herself.
That is unacceptable in this meeting. It will not be tolerated.
Well, I agree. I was just pointing it out.
Yeah. And for that, I will be putting you in the waiting room for the remainder of the meeting. Any other comments this evening?
Jason, this is Brad Wormel.
Yes, sir.
Are the people making these comments tonight Perry Township residents? Do you know?
I believe that they were made directly. I don't have copies of them, but if it was made by Mr. Lee, as he just said that it was, he is not a resident of Perry Township.
Then I kind of wonder why we need to listen to it. Thanks.
Well, he does have a vested interest in the township, though. He does have land, and he doesn't live within the township boundaries, but he does have a vested interest.
Yeah.
Hello? He doesn't pay Perry Township taxes. That's all.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, I'd like to say something, Jason. In the 4 years that I've done this, I ran for trustee because I thought I could make a difference and I wanted to learn. I've learned an awful lot, and I just wish that we could all come together instead of all this hatred. And I know there's a lot of things that people don't understand, which I didn't understand before I became a trustee. But it you know, when people get on and say things like Robbie Lee, or you send message, or people aren't talking to each other because of what happened with Mike Kraft or Rhonda Binkin quitting or everything else, there's a lot more to the story, and we cannot tell that. If you'll remember years ago when Dale Sim was on there, how many times he said we can't talk about things. It's the same way now. We can't do that. So I just, I want everyone to know that I ran because I thought I could make a difference. And hopefully I did in some aspects, but I don't know. At this point, I don't know anymore. That's all I got to say.
Hi. Can I speak?
You got to unmute.
All right. I
I'm
make a
just
motion.
I'm gonna say one more thing,
Okay.
Jason.
Mhm.
I'm just gonna say one more thing. I had hoped to avoid making a big statement or getting into any of this, and I'm not gonna go through with this whole big speech I had planned just in case. But I do want to point out that since Jason and Missy and I took office, we stepped into our roles and have been held to a much higher standard than most of the past leaders. And some of those standards that we're held to are bypass leaders. Everything we do is scrutinized. We have to make sure every I is dotted, every T is crossed, or somebody is going to call us on it. So we have gone above and beyond to make sure that everything in the township is running the way it's supposed to run. Unfortunately, in doing that, some things have been uncovered that have prompted investigations, responses, reactions, things that we didn't want to see happening. And we have been forced to make decisions that we did not want to make, such as levies on the ballot coming up. We've been put into a corner where we don't have choices to make. We didn't have a choice when it came to the termination of certain employees in the township, because we would have done things very differently if we could. But certain decisions that we make are going to piss off one side or the other. And we are not at liberty to share where a lot of those decisions come from. If we could, we would. But I assure whoever is still listening that the number one priority is not to make changes in this township, but to make sure this township continues to exist. And we need to make decisions for the good and welfare of this township as a whole. They may not be popular decisions. They may be painful and uncomfortable decisions, and we can't go into details, but we're going to make decisions mainly because we've been put into a position by the people who are, watching every move we make, where we have to do that. So it's a difficult spot that we're in.
I think that now the two of you sitting in the seat who weren't in the seat previously are now seeing just how shitty people are when they come at you and you're trying to do the best you can as a trustee. So maybe all of the scrutiny that was put against past people should be looked at a little differently, because now you're getting a real taste of just how nasty people can be.
Well, heck, I knew that from the election. The problem that we're running into is people are being nasty because they don't really know what's going on, and we can't disclose it. People are sharing information on Facebook and then wanting to know why we're not responding, and we've said we're not going to respond on that. They're wanting questions or answers to questions that we cannot legally answer right now. A lot of what we're facing right now have been problems for many, many years, and we've been put into a situation where, because so many people are saying we're watching your every move and you have to do things by the book, that in doing things by the book, we're finding that so many things had to be fixed or corrected. And we didn't want to have to fix and correct things. We didn't want to have to come in and have penalties and fines and legal things. And That was not at all what we expected to come into. But a group of people said, you need to do it. You need to do it the right way. So we're faced with the question, do we do things the right way and the legal way according to the Ohio Revised Code and the sunshine laws and everything else and all these standards we're being held to? Or do we turn the other cheek and let things stay the way they've been, knowing that the OTA and the county commissioners and other people are in strong disagreement with it, and we could face penalties down the road? There's a very difficult choice to be made in that, because one side or the other is not going to be happy with it.
Penalties and fines for what?
For violations of various things. There have been a lot, and we can't go into details on all of them yet, but they are things that are being corrected, like fences in the cemeteries. Randy mentioned that one earlier. There's a lot of catching up to do.
All right, there's no other comments. I make a motion that we adjourn.
I second.
Trustee Wen,
Yes.
trustee Hartshorn,
Yes.
trustee Mears.
That's a bunch of bullshit.
Thank you all.
Trustee Mears, did you say yes? You're on mute.
You're still muted, Missy.
Sorry, yes.
All right. We are
All right.
adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.